All right. Hello and welcome to the closing reading and celebration of the Tamaas Poetry Translation Seminar. I'm Malvika Jolly, and I had the pleasure this year of curating this extra special seminar, which began 20 years ago in a garden of Paris Reed Hall. Sarah and Omar will be here shortly to tell you a little bit about the beautiful history. But this poetry translation seminar began in a garden in Paris 20 years back, and since then it has blossomed and bloomed and cast its fragrance across so much of the world since then. This was our second cohort focusing on poets, translators, writers of the global South Asian diaspora, working between languages like Urdu, Hindi, Punjabi, Kashmiri, Caribbean Hindustani, and more. And as our very own Rajiv Mohabir, present in the room with us, said last year, I like to think of translation theoretically as the diaspora of the original. Or as Derrida said, all texts are in mourning, that is, until they are translated. And this was a really, really sweet cohort this year. We were really blessed. We have writers in the room with us percolating between experimental poems, collaging Fez Ahmed Fez's travel log of memories, remembrances, experiences as he traveled the USSR. We have deep meditations on the materiality of a bottle. We have poems for Gaza. We have poems of water bodies and the structures of feeling that they contain, considerations of how memory and water structure feeling. We have beautiful meditations on the pala fish, which migrates between sweet water and salt water to the dargah of Khwaja Khidr to be blessed, and only then are fished. And this poem in particular is offered to us by Samandar, which means ocean. So it feels really pleasurable for me and us in the language of delights. We have many, many delights here. I've been feeling reminded that in texts as in life, it is the work of the heart to do the traveling. The heart is the vessel that does the traveling, that mediates the translation of the self to the self. So I am really, really honored to be welcoming today for all of us in this warm Zoom room. First up, Asna Nusrat and Usama Lali, followed by Samandar Ghauss and Sanam Sheriff, followed by myself and Rajiv Mohabir, followed by Sham-e-Ali Nayeem and Zeeshan Pathan, and finally Haider Shahbaz and Aditya Bahl, who will be sharing experimental and collaborative texts worked on together in the month of September 2025. It's going to be a really beautiful afternoon. But first, I'm going to pass it off to Sarah Riggs and Omar Berrada, who will open us up with an invocation and tell us a little bit about the history of this beautiful seminar, which they co-founded. So Omar and Sarah, passing it to you.
Thank you so much, Malvika, and thank you to all the amazing poet, translator, writer participants this year. The translation seminar is as old as our organization Tamaas, which means contact in Arabic. For instance, the finger on the string of an instrument, that kind of connection. And we have worked with usually between 8 and 12 poet pairs each year now. It's been annual the first dozen years, and then in more recent years, we've been catching up with the publications. We've been exploring online with COVID, and one of the great advantages of online is just how we're able to have people from all over the world come together in a very intimate space. And that produced, in particular, many of the contributions to what became our book, Another Room to Live In, 15 Contemporary Arab Poets. And it's a trilingual book, which we already thought was a huge feat, Arabic, French, and English. And there are author's notes, as well as translator notes, an introduction by Maren Arsanios. And we have books in, one color for each year for many of the earlier years, which we called Read After Read Hall in Paris, where Omar and I met and were living. And we have tried to emphasize Cole Swenson, the poet, American poet and translator, and I curated a lot of the early rounds. And there is a tendency, obviously, we all know it, to kind of downgrade what the translator brings. And the purpose of this seminar has really been to try to undermine that kind of hierarchy, that the poet is more important than the translator, and to see how translators can be poets and how important it is to have that creative energy and ability to free associate and to take risks. And so that's been one of the real adventures. And we've always had many of the pairs from each year continue on with their work long after the seminar was over. And there have been dozens and dozens of books that have come out of the pairings in one form or another. We're not publishers, we haven't published them ourselves, but we're really happy to just provide a situation in where people can just encounter, in many cases, people they've never worked with before.
Malvika, you may be waiting for me to say something. I don't think I have much to add, other than being happy to be here with everyone, and insisting on what Sarah said, which is that this seminar, which has been around for 20 years, has always been a way of creating a gathering space, a place for poets to be together, and for translation to be taken seriously as a creative practice. And for reciprocity, because the main principle of it is that there's a group of people who spend a week together, either in a room or on Zoom, etc., and then they're divided up into these pairs of poets who translate each other and work together, and sometimes kind of go beyond that initial ask or commission or invitation to translate each other and end up writing something together, something new. So various new writings and even books have come out of this over the years. And the last thing I wanted to say is just to thank you, Malvika, for stewarding this edition and the last edition of the seminar with Rajiv also.
Thank you so much. All right, so we will get started right away. Our very first duo, I'm so pleased to introduce the lovely Asna Nusrat and Usama Lali. Asna and Lali, it's very interesting. So Asna Nusrat is a bilingual writer from Karachi, Pakistan. She writes fiction, nonfiction, translations in English and Urdu. And Lali is also a writer from Punjab, Pakistan, has an MFA in fiction from the University of Washington, Seattle. His poetry and prose have appeared in a variety of beautiful publications, but the sweet tenderness here is that when we were beginning to put together the cohort for this year, Asna was a really fierce recommendation from last year's cohort. We were recommended Asna by Sarah Ghazal Ali, and she said, you have to find this writer, you have to befriend this writer, you have to have her come in. And then we got Asna, and Asna had a recommendation in her heart and in her pocket as well. So she called in Lali, and they've had this like beautiful outcropping of collaboration. I'm so excited to pass you both the mics. Take it away. But before you take it away, for this reading, the texts that you will hear with your listening ear, if you would like to see them with your reading eye for accessibility or for scholarship, we will be posting a link to a Google Doc in the chat. That way you can kind of open it up at leisure, but it doesn't create your experience. So you'll see that momentarily. Passing it to you too. Please take it away.
Hello, hi everybody. Thank you, Malvika, for running this workshop so smoothly and for setting the tone so well every time we met some weeks ago. Thank you to my gratitude to Omar and Sarah for letting me be a part of such wonderful company. It was a pleasure. And thank you to everybody joining and taking out the time to join in. Asna, do you want to add something before I go?
Thank you, Malvika, for that beautiful intro. For both of us, that just made my heart swell. Thank you. And Omar and Sarah, thank you for putting this beautiful space together to help different translators come together in this space from the comfort of our homes, even though we would very much like to travel, as was the norm in the earlier renditions of this. But thank you so much for putting this together. And Lali, I'll pass it on to you so you can start us off.
Yeah. So a brief note on the translation and the entire project and the experience. I'm a kind of translator who, before this, had only ever translated works that were easy to translate, and I would do them just for fun to unwind at the end of a long day. That's my idea of fun. So I try and, not touch things that are hard to translate, just stuff that I can easily translate without opening a dictionary. But with this, I was more than intimidated because Asna's work is so layered and textured. Her images and her syntax vocabulary is really complex. But it was a wonderful experience doing it because I was able to find a common point, which is her work, like mine, is full of images. In a way, I classify us both as imagist poets. But where my poems have images pass very rapidly, and every image is a jumping pad to get to the next. And I try and beget meaning by juxtaposing images and hopefully surprising ways. Asna makes you stay with an image and she meditates on it and you see it anew. She defamiliarizes it for you. And it really is an act of devotion, almost. It's like supplication. This is her way of prayer, almost, it seems. There's a Abbas Kiarostami poem that I'm often reminded of when I was translating her work, which goes something like, I point at the mountain and stare in awe at the grandeur of my finger. That's what Asna's poems do. They point at the sublime and the divine, but always through the concrete and the little and the everyday. And so, I had the pleasure of spending time with the work, and translating all the details that she had gathered. That's another thing that I love about her work, which is just how many details you can pack into just a few lines. The I think it's a James Wood who said, every detail dies a double death. Once when it comes to pass, and second when it's nobody records it. And I feel like Asna is the kind of writer who has taken it upon herself to record every detail that she can religiously. And I think there's a third death that occurs when a detail is recorded but never transferred to another language. And that's where we come in as translators. So here's the first and only poem really that it was a long prose poem that I translated by Asna. Asna, why don't you go ahead and read your original poem in English first, and then I'll read my translation of it in Urdu.
Yeah, of course. So for all of you who would like to follow along, I'm sure Malvika has dropped the Google Doc link. If you want to search to where I'm beginning to read from, it starts with Khaseer, Khaseer. Okay, Khaseer. I was compelled to perform wuzu, say Bismillah, and repent with astaghfar before entering the territory. Or pressing my fingers against the smooth contours where the neck curved into the shoulders at the base of her nozzle, standing tall. Like a body sculpted from alabaster, garbed in luminous green, the bottle enthroned herself. on a singular spot on the shelf. Like the old woman in her evening chair, I stood in front of the queenly bottle, like one of those eager-eyed children watching the old maestro comb her hair, tucking each fly away into the thick, matted waves on her oiled head. All they wanted to do was sit cross-legged, with grey knees poking from their knickers, face cradled between palms making a lotus, and follow the comb with their eyes as it served down the tides of her hair until the ends slipped through its teeth. Khasir. After every lap, their pupils flitted back to the crown, where the comb was ready to raft downstream again, and again, and again. The silence of that hour was hypnotic. Watching the rhythm of the comb, the thrill each time the hand went up exactly to the demarcated middle part was real as the giggles billowing in children aboard Sinbad's pirate ship, which would oscillate and hang mid-air for a split second and then swing down with a swoosh. The eager pause at the apex of the swing's arc. Then the comb came sliding down in one practiced motion, sounding dry whispers, plastic against hair. Khasir, khasir, said the comb to the old woman's hair, like a hiss escaping teeth as air wrestles the tongue. And yet the swing hung mid-air, and the comb, paused at start, together were no match for how my fingers fiddled to hold her, the bottle. Sometimes in the dorm bathrooms, my roommate reached a wet hand toward me with the bottle, slick with soap and dripping. Put it back on the shelf? I nod. Did she know? What more could I ask? To walk the beauty back to its rightful seat on the shelf above the roommate's desk was everything. That's where I'm going to pause. Lali, do you want to share your translation of it?
Yes, I'll go ahead and do that. खसीर, मुझे उस जगह जाने से पहले वुजू करके बिस्मिल्लाह पढ़ के इस्तग़फ़ार से तौबा करना लाजिम महसूस हुआ, या अपनी उंगलियां फेरना टूंटी के नीचे उस हमवार साख्त पर जहां गर्दन का खम कंधों से जा मिले। बुलंद खड़ी जैसे संगे जराद से तिरछा जिस्म लिए चमकदार जुमुर्द रंग में मलबूस बोतल खुद को शेल्फ पे एक मखसूस जगह तख्त नशीं किए थी, जैसे कोई बुजुर्ग औरत अपनी शाम की कुर्सी पे। मैं मलका नुमा बोतल के सामने खड़ी बेचैन नजरों से तकते बच्चों की तरह उस बूढ़ी माहिरा को वो बाल कंघी करते देखती, बिखरे बालों को अपने तेल आलूद सर की उलझी लहरों में समेटते देखती। वो चाहते सिर्फ इतना थे कि चौकड़ी लगा के अपने जांघिए में से मैले घुटने निकाले, चेहरा कमल बनी हाथों में रखे, कंघी का आंखों से पीछा करते, जब तक कंघी बालों की लहरों से नीचे सिरक के बालों का सिरा अपने दांतों से गुजार ना चुकी होती। खसीर। हर चक्कर के बाद उनकी आंखें सर की चोटी को लौटती, जहां कंघी फिर से बालों के बहाव के साथ नीचे तैर आने को तैयार होती। फिर से उस कंघी की बहर को सुनते सुनते उस वक्त वो खामोशी ख्वाबावर थी। मांग पे हर बार हाथ जाते वक्त महसूस होती सनसनी हकीकी थी, सिंबाद की कश्ती पे बैठे बच्चों की हंसी कीसी हकीकी, वो जो बीच हवा लहरा के एक लम्हे के लिए ठहर जाती और फिर वुश की आवाज से नीचे लपकती। उस लहर की चोटी पे उसकी बेचैन हिचकिचाहट, और फिर कंघी हाथ की एक माहिराना हरकत से नीचे उतरती खुश्क सरगोशी बालों के पे प्लास्टिक। खसीर खसीर बोलती कंघी बुढ़िया के बालों पर, जैसे एक दांतों से निकली सिसकी, दांतों से उलझती हवा। और फिर भी हाथ की लहर बीच हवा रुकी और वो कंघी ठहरी। ये दोनों कुछ भी नहीं थे उस बेचैनी के सामने जिससे गुजर रही थी मेरी उंगलियां, सिर्फ उसको छूने के लिए, उस बोतल को। कभी कभार हॉस्टल के बाथरूम में मेरी रूममेट अपना साबुन से चमकता टपकता हाथ मेरी ओर बढ़ाती। मेरे शेल्फ पे रख दोगी? मैं सर हिला के हाँ कहती। उसे क्या पता कि मैं और चाह भी जा सकती। उस खूबसूरती को रूममेट के मेज के ऊपर शेल्फ पे उस नशिस्त तक पहुंचाना कि जिसकी वो हकदार थी, मेरे लिए सब कुछ था। Thank you for listening, guys. That was my poem of Asna's beautiful poem. Asna, I guess we can now move to your translation of my work.
Oh, Lali, the way that you use that titillating translation of उसे क्या पता कि मैं चाह भी क्या सकती थी. Man, oh man. I don't think there can be a bigger praise for you as a writer than someone translating your work and doing such a majestic job at it. Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna now read my translation of Lali's poems. It's a set of 3 poems, but looking at the clock, I don't know if I'd be able to do all 3, but I'm definitely gonna try to squeeze in 2 at least. And so I'm gonna share my notes and thoughts on my translation process after reading the translation. So let's start with Craft. Lali, do you mind reading your poem Craft?
Sure. So this is a poem I wrote called Craft. Everyone can write well if they don't try to write better than they're capable of. Bukowski would have been a joke if he tried to write like Seamus Heaney. Seamus would have been a fool if he tried to write like Charles Bukowski, and the world would have been poorer if they tried to write like each other. I've been trying to write like myself for a while now, which is to say, I'm trying to understand what I'm capable of, which is to say, I'm trying to love you the only way I know, by turning my back on the great lovers we grew up reading towering epics about, and writing you a simple little poem about the writing of poems.
Thank you. And now here goes my translation. सुखन भरी. हर कोई अच्छा लिख पाता अगर वो जितना अच्छा लिख सकता है उससे बेहतर लिखने की कोशिश ना करता. बुकाउस्की की लिखाई महज एक मजाक होती अगर वो शेमस हेनी की नकल करने की कोशिश करता. शेमस बेवकूफ होता अगर वो चार्ल्स बुकाउस्की की नकल करने की कोशिश करता. और दुनिया गरीब से गरीब तर हो जाती अगर वो दोनों एक दूसरे की तकलीद में लगे रहते. मैं एक मुद्दत से अपनी तरह लिखने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ, यानी ये समझने की कोशिश कि मैं किस लायक हूँ, यानी तुमसे मोहब्बत करने की कोशिश जैसे मैं मोहब्बत करना जानता हूँ, उन अजीम मोहब्बत करने वालों से रुख मोड़कर जिनकी मोहब्बत की दास्तान पढ़ते पढ़ते हम बड़े हुए, और तुम्हारे लिए नज़मों के बारे में एक नज़म लिखकर. This was my rendition of Lali's Ars Poetica Craft. And I will hold my thoughts on this until we get through the translations we want to read. Let's go to Unputdownable. Lali, do you want to read that out?
That was wonderful, by the way, Asna. Unputdownable. When you kept losing your bookmarks, as certain uncertain readers often do, I gave you a 1,000 rupee note. Use this. When one can't care at all, the only way to care enough is to make sure what one stands to lose is a lot. When you lost that note too, I offered my grandfather's old deck of cards, the bicycle brand my father's kept safe all those years. 52 cards, 52 chances to guard what marks your place, 52 times to be helplessly you. When I found you looking for relief yet again, I cut off my lips and placed them in your book. Then my gums, nose hair, eyelids, scalp, an earlobe, a mole, my cheeks, my chin. Finally, I brought you my neck. On the quietest day in the sleepiest park, I found you on a bench, looking distant, the book's pages turning in a gentle wind, the page you were at, neatly dog-eared.
Thank you, Lali. And here's my translation of Unputdownable. नाकाबिले तलाफी. जब तुम बार बार अपनी किताब की निशानी कहीं रखकर भूल रहे थे, जैसे अक्सर पढ़ने वाले भूल जाया करते हैं, मैंने तुम्हें 1,000 रुपए का नोट दिया, रख लो. जब कोई बिल्कुल एहसास से खाली हो, तब उसका कुछ बेशकीमत ग्रां कदर दाव पे लग जाए तो ही एहसास जागता है. जब तुमने वो नोट भी गुमा दिया, मैंने अपने दादा के पुराने ताश के पत्ते पेश किए, वो साइकिल वाला ब्रांड जो मेरे अब्बू ने बरसों संभाल कर रखे थे. 52 पत्ते, 52 निशानी बचाने के मौके, 52 बार तुम जैसा होना. तुम्हें फिर पत्ता ढूंढता देखकर मैंने अपने होंठ की कतलियां तुम्हारी किताब के पन्नों में रख दी। फिर मसूड़े, नथनों के बाल, पपोटे, सर की खाल, उन एक कान की लौ, एक तिल, मेरे गाल और मेरी थोड़ी। बिल आखिर एक खामोश दिन, एक ख्वाबीदा पार्क में, जब मैंने तुम्हें एक बेंच पर बैठे सोचों में गुम देखा, मैंने तुम्हें अपनी गर्दन ला दी। तुम्हारी किताब के सफ़े हवा से मुड़ते रहे और वो सफ़ा जिस पर तुम थे उसका कोना मुड़ा हुआ। This is one of the poems in the set that still gives me goosebumps to read in Lali's original.
I know.
Okay.
I think you just gave yourself goosebumps there because your translation is so good. Like I said earlier once during the workshop, I wish I could write as well as you translate me, Asna. But yeah, that was so good.
Thank you.
Should I keep
Mhm.
on then?
Yeah, just let's quickly. Malvika, how are we doing on time? Do we have?
I think you could do the next one. Yeah.
Okay, I promise, this is the last.
You don't even have to promise.
Okay. Thank you. Lali, dental care?
Dental care. The sun got too hot, and I cleaned my AC's filters with your long unused toothbrush today. The bristles are all bent now, its mouth agape with 1,000 broken teeth, and I did put it back carefully in the cup on the sink, gently beside my own. I hope you don't blame me for trying to make use of things that once took care of you and keeping them for their brokenness. I just wish you had found a way to do the same.
And here goes the translation. दांतों की फिक्र। सूरज की तपिश तेज थी और मैंने आज एसी के फिल्टर को तुम्हारे पुराने टूथब्रश से साफ कर दिया। उसके रेशे बिल्कुल मुड़ चुके हैं और 1000 टूटे दांतों वाला मुंह खुला हुआ, मगर मैंने फिर भी उसे ध्यान से सिंक के ऊपर रखे कप में अपने वाले के साथ आहिस्ता से वापस रख दिया। शायद तुम मुझे अपनी उन बेकार चीज़ों को इस्तेमाल करने का इल्ज़ाम ना दो जो कभी तुम्हारा ख्याल रखा करती थीं और जिनको उनके टूटेपन के लिए मैंने संभाल लिया है। काश तुमने भी यही करने का कोई रास्ता ढूंढ लिया होता। And this was the last of the set of 3 poems that I had from Lali. In the interest of time, I don't want to dwell too long on my thoughts and notes on what the process was like for me in translating these poems, but I do want to say one thing, that it's so amazing to me that some of Lali's poems just came to me and they just kind of like, जैसे ढल जाना एक ज़बान में, उस तरह वो ढल गई in Urdu, and it was so easy and honestly so flattering and encouraging to you as a translator when a text just so easily transitions into your language. But others were ones that demanded a bit of wrestling, and that was a wrestle that was really worth my time and energy, because I think to me as a translator, in the craft of translation, the magic really happens not as much in the destination, but in the conveyance of meaning and the process in which you're wrestling and juggling, and there's a lot of push and pull. And in that, what comes out of it is something that's truly magical. It's transformative, I think, to say the least, for both the work and the translator, and definitely was like that for me. Because I feel in translating Lali's poems, and as Lali said, they're so rich with images, and those images are really rather used as a landing point to bounce off from. So there's a flight after every image. So it really, in translating that, it was really the conduit where the text, it became animated and sentient. And it's when the text comes alive and that you have dialogue with it is when the most fun happens. And on that note, I'm going to conclude our session from both our behalves. Thank you all for listening to it, and thank you for sparing your time on a Sunday to be with us.
Thank you both so much. Such a strong open. Yeah, claps all around. So much love in the chat. I love Samandar's comment in the chat, like a flight after each image, and so beautiful to hear you both speak about the process and like cognitively getting into it. I had several moments in the seminar of learning new words, but learning the coining of new words from the two of you. Like I had never heard this word kwabida for like sleepy, dreamy, and then the coining of like kwab avar, for sort of hypnotic, dream-inducing. There's something about like the radical permission of like a nebulous language, like a nebulous language with like protein structures, a language that can kind of grow and contain. So love that. Love you both so much. I'm so excited next to be welcoming Samandar and Sanam. Sanam's work has been published or is forthcoming in Poetry, Indiana Review, where Samandar was previously, The Rumpus, Virginia Quarterly, the Academy of American Poets, many, many more. Some very beautiful and exciting news for all of us recently is that their debut poetry collection, Hum, Us, Me, Us, depending on where you are, is forthcoming this time next year, fall 2026, with the University of Nebraska Press. And they're joined by Samandar S.J. Ghauss, who is a poet, educator, illustrator, cultural worker for the people. And when they say that, they really mean that. Samandar is a Pakistani American poet, and all of those things, encompassing all of these things, and draws on like years of community organizing in various movements on various scales, from the hyper local to the national, towards like a more just world, and dreams all of the dreams about decolonization in the past, present, and future that we all want to dream into. And I feel so lucky to have gotten to pair the two of you, even though you likely knew each other already, because I met both Samandar and Sanam in the summer of 2021 when I was curating poets for the Brooklyn Rail, and both of these poets came into my orbit and into my mind around the same time. And I remember exchanging really beautiful emails briefly with Sanam around their form of the door, which is like a line, a cord, a rope, or a thread, a poetic form they invented, where the poem splits a quote in half and then the poem like blooms in between. And then Samandar, I somehow always know and called upon, and does so much like good work for like local causes, and also for like the Palestinian cause towards liberation. And I had a feeling that both of these luminous people would connect luminously. So let's bask in their light. Passing it to you.
That is really so incredibly sweet. Thank you, Malvika. I wrote a tiny introduction, just that kind of bloomed out of the experience that you curated, and Omar and Sarah, that you all invented for us, and that Sanam and I got to partake in. And I'll read that brief introduction, and then jump into a poem. So again, thanks everyone for being here on a Sunday afternoon or evening. So I'll first say that all language is metaphor, is collaboration. And for me, I imagine the letters of Urdu and English just stretching their tails towards each other, ligatures and serifs holding each other through a complicated footwork of translation, which to me is new, for me is new. The gift of multiple languages is to be invited into this dance. My mind always translating, even without fluency. It has been 15 years since I lived in a household where Urdu was spoken, and the ribbons of language that persist in me have held on, it seems, from sheer willpower. But where I lack grammar or vocabulary, I have dreams and ideas, feelings and images, and in this process of translation, I've felt those quiet, bright things emerge as arcs of lines and poetry. It wouldn't be possible without this collaboration in which Sanam and I would pull each other from anxious loops about fidelity to the poem in English. We'd acknowledge each other's validity of thought and turn the dream of language into light. How Sanam would call their nani in India, and I would call my sweetheart in Karachi, and we'd flip through the heavy, fat dictionaries on our desks and pages of online dictionaries, finding words over words, linking their inks across time and space. Sanam read some of my poems backwards, found that they tell stories right to left and left to right, reached behind the English of my writing and found their secret, yearning Urdu, somehow placed my work in an endless oceanic current of these languages, transfiguring forever. And between Sanam's similes and lines of poems, I felt Urdu move stones of English into new cities, where the Urdu of my past is given space to breathe into its own lexicon of transness, gender play, queer ambiguity, rooms of our own in the light of day. So I'm very, very grateful to you, Sanam, for being part of this with me. I guess we'll start with a poem. Sanam, would you read your poem Transfiguration?
Gosh, can you hear me when I speak? Okay, that introduction has floored me. Someone that I have to just take a moment to breathe into that. Yeah, feeling very emotional, feeling really blessed to have been put into each other's paths in this way, and to hold this project with so much reverence and care. I will can it there and then come back when I'm speaking about your work, and I will go to read this poem. Thank you so much, Sami, for that doorway. Okay, I'm going to read Transfiguration, and then I'll stop speaking. Transfiguration. I have been made anew, like the first hour of sun after days of rain. I have kissed the face of the life that took from me the only life I knew. Made anew, I have let love render me surrendered, naked as a speck of dust in a beam of day let loose from an open fist. I have kissed the fist open. Open, I have effaced the face of every shame that did not say my truer name. Look, I was given a cage I have come to see as a gift, for it is a cage I can see. Just yesterday, my love bent 2 bars into a bouquet of flowers on a day I did not believe in flowers. I am taking my body beyond its shape.
It's so beautiful. I just can feel the textures too of that poem when you read it in English. All right, here's my translation of that poem of Sanam's into Urdu. मुतजन्ना, हम दोबारा से बन गए, जैसे बरसात के बाद सूरज का पहला घंटा पैदा होता है। हमने जिंदगी के उसी चेहरा को प्यार दिया जिसने हमारी पहली सी पहचानी जिंदगी को छीन लिया। हादिस बनकर हम प्यार से बेहथियार हो गए, धूल के आरी शरार दिन के शोला में जो खुले हुए मुक्के से मुक्ति लेता है। हमने मुक्का को प्यार से खोला, खुलकर हमने हर शर्म को बेशर्म कर दिया। देखें, हमें एक ऐसा पिंजरा दिया गया है जो देन के नाम से अब पहचानते हैं। कल ही तो हमारे यार ने पिंजरे के 2 सलाखों को मोड़कर फूलों का गुच्छा में बना दिया, ये भी जब हम फूलों से बेअकीदा थे। हम अपने बदन को अपने शक्ल से और आगे ले जा रहे हैं। And I'll pass it to you, Sanam.
Thank you so much, Samandar. I'm just listening to you say that. I'm just thinking about my Nani and how devoted she is to me as a poet, and what a gift it could be to give her this translation and to give her this in this language that she raised me in. So just I feel very moved, very touched, very nervous to be on camera in a moment as vulnerable as this. And I guess what I'd like to say is that Sami and I had known each other's work, but never like spoken to each other in conversation until this seminar. And the gift of it continued so far beyond it. And in the week after the seminar ended, they drove from DC to Philadelphia one morning, and we got to spend the day together. And to me, that was a translation from like this virtual space to like the 3D self that got to share in time together in this real way. And what I was so moved by was Samandar's like devotion to art that doesn't have boundary in language and text and flows into the physicality of making books and color and paint, and a kind of devotion that to me felt like a devotion to divinity itself. And to encounter someone's spirit like that in their body in real time, to me has felt like a real blessing and gift. And so thank you to Sarah and Omar and Malvika for bringing us together and giving us that. In terms of translation, it's been like 12 years since I've been in a home that is Urdu speaking, and I think that in the past I've translated poems from Urdu to English, but I've never done it this other way around. And in this process, I've realized that I don't actually know what my poetics is in Urdu, like what my poetic kind of approach is in this language. And that's something that like this process has kind of set me on my way of trying to figure out. And so that's something I feel grateful for as well. A thing that I've kept close since our conversation in that week was Samandar and I talking about the reverence that we have for Urdu, having been severed from it in these various ways, and how that creates this kind of loyalty to the correctness of the language and wanting to get it right. And when I think about my poetics in English, for me, the breaking open of the English, the queering of the language, the like resisting the rules of it feels so central to how I come to the craft. And I feel like that permission is not something I've yet given myself in Urdu because of that loyalty. And so I've resisted very difficultly grammar checking and trying to like get this poem to do its like grammatical correct, gender correctness. And I'm sharing that from that place of vulnerability. The poem that I translated of Samandar's was Letter to Palla Fish, which is so divine in itself. Thinking about what Malvika was mentioning about the Palla fish that migrates from the sea to the river and is believed to be blessed by the shrine of Khwaja Khizr and is then only fished after and is believed to be transformed. And just that kind of conversation of transformation also between our work to me is really sings. And so I will share my small attempt at this translation, but before that, Samandar, could you read us your beautiful poem, please?
Thank you. Yes, of course. Okay. Letter to Palafish. My hair grows long, rivering over the night of my body. The notes find me through that stretch of dark, my scalp itching an ocean's weft. Yes, I carry the waves. Yes, the notes tense, bulging with sound. Every singing note lives in this blood. Every singing note is a stream and its fish. My head holds a current of hair braiding salt and fresh water into my flesh. Like you, Balla, I am altered by entering the river. Altar to altar, Kharadar to Mitadar, I swim sound upstream into Khizr's open hands, measuring the change in my form. Sa, then ni, then ta, Balla, perhaps my note is gauging the depth of his truth. Eventually, you'd think I'd find a body of water to lay my chords against. To trust a prophet, I should let water stroke my hair like it would ring a bell. Let it sound my truth for a change. Palla, do you trust me? The water is resonating with the rag of your passage. The sound curls like a migration caught at a dam in a net.
Thank you so much, Sami, for that music. Okay, here is this. पल्ला, आप जैसे मैं भी दरिया में शामिल होके बदल जाती हूँ. मेरी जुल्फों की लहरें इस जिस्म से सिल जाते हैं, धागा नमक और मीठे पानी का. हर गुनगुनाती हुई सुर इस लहू में सांस लेती है. कुर्बानगा से कुर्बानगा, खारादर से मीठा दर. लहरे की लहरा तैरती हूँ मैं खिजर के खुले हाथों तक. सा फिर नी फिर दा ओ पल्ला. शायद मेरे सुर यकीन की तलाश में खिजर की गहरी गहरी सच्चाइयां का अंदाजा लगा रहे. अगर मेरी राग ये बदन ए आब से बदन मिला सके, अगर पानी की उंगलियां मेरी जुल्फों की तार सुना सके, वो लहरा मेरी सच्चाई की लहू, वो लहन मेरी सच्चाई की सांस. पल्ला, क्या आपको मुझ पर भरोसा है? पानी आपके गुजरते हुए राग से गूंज रही है. वो आवाज जो मुसाफिर जैसे कदम बढ़ाती है, वो आवाज बंदे दरिया की जाल में पकड़ी हुई तड़प रही है. Samandar, I didn't know whether you wanted to go to the next question.
Well, first off, my mind is blown. So beautiful. And I feel like I should ask permission from Malvika. Do we have time? I think
Permission granted.
okay. I should have known. Malvika is always
I think I would say no.
Never. But one must ask. There's one more poem of Sanam's that I wanted to share with y'all today. Sanam, would you read it for us?
Yes. It's a small poem called 3 Months Pre-Op, Inception. All summer, apples bloom, orchards full, along supple slopes of the Himalayas. Sweet red in the maw of my beloved, biting down. Scalpel like snowfall on those twin crests. A season arrives. What grew here has its place in the ground.
And here's a translation, which I will just say, like, in the process of translating, it's a short poem, but I think it took longer than any of the other poems I worked on of Sanam's. Just the precision of language in this poem and exactly what the punctuation and the spacing, the syntax is doing is so, it's so ripe. It's such a beautiful puzzle to be in. So again, like, thank you, for the opportunity to do this. 3 महीने प्री ऑपरेशन इब्तिदा. गर्मी का मौसम है. हिमालय के हरे हरे मर्तूबी धनवान पर सेब खिन खिन के भागों को उभारते हैं. मीठे लाल मेरे यार के मुंह में दांतों के बीच ऐसे चुड़ी जैसे बर्फ उन जुल्वान उठान पर धीरे धीरे घिरती है. एक मौसम आता है जो यहाँ उगा यहाँ आबाद है.
This was me trying to unmute myself. Wow, thank you so much, Samu. That's my first time encountering that translation. So you're seeing that in real time. And for me, that last line and that just the sound of Meethe Lal Mere Yaar, I will keep that. Thank you so much. It's been such a delight and a gift. And thank you to all of you for communing with us and being here. Yeah.
Echoes of gratitude from me too. And Malvika, I see you talking, but you are muted.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for telling me. I love you both so much. Thank you so much for all that sharing. Those introductions, the translator's notes are themselves a poem. The sound curls like a migration, caught at a dam, feels so braided with Rajiv's work that we'll hear from his voice and his mind, if not his whale migration work, momentarily. The let water stroke my hair like it were a bell feels so tied to like Asna and Lali's like kasir, the sound of the comb moving through the hair, and ab jaise main bhi darya mein shamil ho jati hu leads us so nicely into uh, the world of daryas, right? The world of rivers. Also the world of Darya Dilli or Darya. I learned this new term in translation over the summer for generous in Urdu, which literally is river-hearted, like to be wide in the heart like a river has gone there. So thank you all for so much generosity. Next up, I'm so moved to be welcoming Rajiv Mohabir, who somehow always gives the smallest matchbox of a bio, but I have his bio memorized in my heart. Rajiv Mohabir was born in London to Guyanese parents. He grew up in New York City and in the greater Orlando area in Florida. He is the author of 5 books of poetry, but within the next 10 minutes, it might become like 20. There's a really radical proliferation in the way he works. And none of it is by accident, is the lesson of my last year and a half. None of it is by accident. It's all by visioning and care and generosity. And his most recent book, Sea Beast, came out just last month with 4-way books. It's beautiful. It's a bestiary that looks at different whales and animals. It's just very beautiful. And I'm going to pass the microphone to Rajiv, who will read a poem. Then I will read my translation. Then we will flip. Rajiv, take it away.
Great, thank you. And also, Malvika, to introduce you, I'm so excited to actually have been working with you. Malvika is a poet who is just incredibly astounding in her breadth and her use of image, as you'll see, but then also like in her capacity as editor and organizer. And I'll also say that Malvika won the 2025 Alice James Award for her poetry book called Visiting Hours of the World. And I cannot wait to read it. I'm so stoked. And thank you, Malvika, for organizing us here. I mean, what a gift you've given to all of us. And it's like truly a dream to collab with you in the last 2 weeks. Like, I think I said to you privately that I wish I could do this all the time. I mean, meaning like I wish my daily life were spent with you on Zoom for like a couple hours going through poems, because it makes me a better writer and a clearer thinker to engage you. And thank you. And then also thank you to Sarah and Omar for, this really beautiful space that you've created at Tamaas. And I'm just so incredibly grateful and humbled to be here with you all. So I'm going to read my first poem called Dreaming in the Language of Goats, which was a prompted poem by Malvika asking us to translate titles in and out of various languages. Dreaming in the Language of Goats. And the pulse of breath against the grass, how quickly English opens to sky, until it comes back as Urdu in my mouth, awaiting aid, awaiting the tide of knives. How speaking anything into being threatens the Lord who sits in the plantation house. How he wants me to pray as he does in broken and breaking things, in whip crack and iron-seared foreskin burns, the rightness of sugar when it's bleached into what the market recognizes. As I slept in the field, Ram Rahim, wake me. Even Urdu is the wrong name that I learned and swallowed for the spells of my grandparents. But if I don't use it, will I still be able to flood the rice paddies, or buy the Berbice chair for my mother when her spine curls into a conch shell, and she can no longer recall any small path or short couplet of the Ramayana or the Ayat al-Kursi.
Okay, and so you see what I'm talking about. You see what I'm talking about. My translation. मैं बकरी की जुबान में ख्वाब देखता हूँ. मैं बकरी की जुबान में ख्वाब देखता हूँ. मेरी सांस, मेरी धड़कन घास में खेलते हैं. और कितनी तेजी से अंग्रेजी आसमान तक उड़ के पहुंचती है. फिर उर्दू के रूप में मेरे मुंह तक लौट आती है. ईद के इंतजार में, तेज छुरियों के लहरों के इंतजार में, कुछ भी बोलूं, कुछ भी कह लूं, फिर भी एस्टेट मालिक के सामने बक बक कह जाता है. वो चाहता है कि मैं उसके तरह दुआ करूं, टूटे हुए बर्बाद करने वाले चीजों से, कोड़ा मारने की आवाज, लोहे से जला हुआ खतना की जिल्द, या चीनी की सच्चाई, रंग जलाने के बाद. तब तक की बाजार में यही उसकी असली शक्ल माना जाता है. अगर मैं गन्ने की खेत में सो पड़ा हूँ, राम रहीम, मुझे जगाओ. यहाँ तक कि उर्दू एक जहर है जो मैंने हमारी नानिया की तिलिज्म के लिए सीखा है, पी लिया है. लेकिन अगर मैं उसे मना कर दूं, क्या हमारे चावल के खेतों में पानी फिर भी बरसेगा? क्या मेरी माँ के लिए बर्बीस कुर्सी खरीद पाऊंगा जब उनके पीठ झुक झुक कर शंख जैसे गोल गोल बन जाए और उनको कुछ नहीं याद रहेगा, रामायण की या आयात की कुर्सी भी, ना एक ही दोहा, ना एक ही शेर. And now I'll read my poem, Gomti River. And what I am so moved by Rajiv's working style, and I learned so much from it. So this was a poem I sent very early on, and then Rajiv went, okay, great, I'm just going to write like 10 river-based poems and a small, like, maybe not 10, maybe 5, a small chaplet of rivers flowed. But this is mine, Gomti River. The Gomti is like a river in Lucknow, in UP. Gomti River. And have I ever felt more powerful than crossing the Gomti River at night? The open air auto after midnight, sailing over the industrial bridge, having just finished translating raw scraps of poem, having felt wild language beating in my mouth, something hot and bloody, mammal, cactile, virile, hooved, dark sweetness of my animal body, burning in the city of martyrs, floods, and fevers. I survived them all. The basin which turned to salt, mirage of water touching the sky, one arm bracing the steel roof against the night wind, every man and dog sleeping in the interstices of the highway, the heat of the night paling, almost cool, like stepping into the black ocean and surrendering to every drop.
Beautiful, Malvika. The spiraling of image and the intensity of it growing is just incredible. I'll say this about the language that I'm using is that I am translating into Guyanese Bhojpuri, or what we would call Hindustani. Gomati Nadia. रतिया में गोमती नदिया पार कराई से का हम कभी और शक्तिशाली रहे. आधी रात की बाद खुला हवा वाले ऑटो औद्योगिक पुलवा के ऊपर चलत कविता के खच्चा तुक्रन अनुवादित करे के बाद जंगली भस्या मुंह में तड़पत जैसन कुछ गरम और खूनी स्तनधारी कैक्टस सा पुरुषार्थी कुरवाला हमार जानवर दे के खरिया मिठास जलत ई शहर ए शहीद में भाड़ और भोखड़वा सब के सब से हम बच गईली. जे बेसन नमक भयल पानी गगन से छुअत के मिराज है एगो बहिया इस्पात के चलत के छात के पकड़त रात के हवा के खिलाफ और एगो आदमी और कोकोरवा राजमार्ग के अंतराल में सुतल बट रात के गर्मियां हल्का हल्का हुए ठंडा जैसन जैसन खाला समंदर में आपन गोरवा लगाई के और हर एगो बुंडवा के मान लेता था. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. 1 second. All right. You see what I mean. You see what I mean. The poets are blessed. I'm so excited to welcome our next wonderful duo. We have Sham-e-Ali Nayeem and Zeeshan Pathan. Sham-e-Ali is an interdisciplinary artist, sound practitioner, screenwriter, poet, many other things. She's also a legal advocate for justice, a mom, very generous. She's the author of the poetry collection City of Pearls, which came out in 2019, and was the screenwriter for Sunil Sansgiri, a wonderful South Asian diaspora filmmaker, also local here in Brooklyn. Sunil Sansgiri's film, Two Refusals, Would We Recognize Ourselves Unbroken? She's joined by Zeeshan, who is the author of The Minister of Disturbances and who works between Urdu, Turkish, and Keshavars. Zeeshan is interested, and I would say more than interested, but like invested, seated, rooted in world literatures, literary theory, the poetry of the Middle East and India. He writes short fiction. He's also very, very devoted to ending the genocide on a daily, hourly basis. And I will pass the mic to the two of you. Please take it away.
Hey, you guys. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Malvika, Sarah, Omar, and every single one of our participants for such an enriching experience and for opening your work to all of our eyes and hearts. So thank you. Sham-e-Ali, would you like to read first, or like how would we do it?
Whatever you prefer, Zeeshan. Since you're speaking already, why don't you? That might be great.
Okay. So I have translated for this last session one of Sham-e-Ali's poems from her collection, City of Pearls, and the English. Would you like to read that part? The English poem.
Sure. Thank you, Zeeshan.
Thank you.
I just also want to just really thank Sarah, Omar, Malvika. Thank you so much for this wonderful, just beautiful intersection. I feel like language is a technology of consciousness as opposed to materiality. And where we can't visit places in material ways, we can connect to those places at the intersections of language. And so I really appreciated this beautiful opportunity to not only get to work with Zeeshan, but also to get to work with other members that were in the seminar. So many conversations, tears, vulnerabilities, grief, and also possibility. So I just really want to send my heartfelt thanks. The poem that Zeeshan picked to translate is called Before Bombing. Before bombing. It's about to happen. Cure to disease extinguished. Answers to questions hanging. The unfinished tea is still warm on the table. Faint print of lips dry on the edge of glass. Echinacea and salvias miss the ones that watered them. Bouquets of sharp trajectories push into hands that never wish to hold them. The walls are whispering.
Thank you, Sham-e-Ali. And so here's my translation of this poem. बमबारी से पहले कुछ होने वाला है, बीमारी का इलाज, बुझना, सवालों का जवाब, लटकना, अधूरी चाय अभी भी गर्म है दस्तरख्वान पे, पर होंठों के हल्के निशान शीशे के किनारे पे खुश्क हो गए हैं। एक्नेचिया और साल्वियास के फूल याद करते हैं उसको जो उन्हें पानी देता था। तेज रफ्तार के गुलदस्ते हाथों में जबरदस्ती थमाए जाते हैं, वो हाथ जिनको इन्हें उठाने की कभी ख्वाहिश न थी। दीवारें सरगोशी कर रही हैं. Thank you. And one thing I wanted to say about translating into Urdu is that I haven't done that very often over the years. Mostly it's been from Urdu to English. So to have the experience of going in the other direction and just to be able to spend time with Sham-e-Ali's work and her ideas and the lyricism, it was very enriching for me. And I did feel that a lot of her poems were anti-war, and in that sense, they spoke to me immediately. And I felt that the Urdu kind of happened when like there was a kind of like coda or something, like it was in there, you know, that when I would read the poem, I would feel like there's an Urdu text underneath, so a palimpsestic kind of. So it was very interesting to see it go into the other direction, and I felt that it was very beautiful as well. So thank you guys, and I really have enjoyed spending this time with you, and I look forward to hearing the rest of your presentations.
Well, Zeeshan, it was a real honor to get to sit with your poems, and what I felt was a very strong core theme in your work is the high level of principle and integrity in which you approach these pieces. Would you like to read the poem I'm going to share that I translated? It is The Moonlight is Leaving Istanbul that I had sent you.
Sure. Let me quickly open it.
If it's a problem, no stress. Just let me know what's comfortable for you.
I think I have it. Thank you for sending it back to me. Okay, so the poem that I had written, the moonlight is leaving Istanbul. In autumn, blood can be a sunrise, blindness the speech of an optic nerve. From far away, the bracelet of a woman can be heard like shrapnel. Evening walks into my home like an indefatigable bird, where two lovers argue over the hours of their separation. Across a field of entombed soldiers, someone stumbles upon a dislodged femur. I am split open by mere thoughts. Red agonies of the wind merge with the crimson sky. Thank you.
Thank you, Zeeshan. So I come from Hyderabad, Deccan, and so I tried to implement a Deccani Urdu translation to this powerful piece. Chandani chale jara Istanbul. ये सूखा मासूम पर खून भी कभी कभी सूरज की वैसा बन जाता, अंधापन आंखों से दिमाग तक नूरानी रास्ता पर बात करते, दूर से एक औरत की चूड़ी की आवाज सुने जा रहा बारूद के वैसा, शाम मेरे घर में उतरती जैसे एक चिड़िया जो कभी नहीं थकती, जा दो आशिक फिक्र करते अपनी फिराक के गांटे पर, सिपाहियों के दफन मैदान पर कोई उखड़ गया इंसान की हड्डी पर दरियाफात किया, और मैं अपने ही ख्यालों में बिखर गया हूं, हवा की लाल जलन आसमां में कूद जाती. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to add again, you know, this was a really vulnerable experience for me. And so I really appreciate Omar, Sarah, Malvika, everyone for allowing the opportunity to step into that vulnerability, because in that there's possibility and also a certain level of so many things that have opened up for me. not only just from my process from it, but just getting to witness the beauty of the process of everybody else's work. So deepest gratitude to everyone.
I'd like to second that. It was really a wonderful experience and very grateful to you guys. Thank you, Malvika, Sarah, Omar, everybody.
We adore you back. Thank you for sharing those beautiful works. I don't think I'd heard the second one. It was lovely. I'm so excited next to be introducing our two writers who will be closing us out for the evening, for the afternoon. Evening, afternoon, morning, midday, actually, in all of our represented time zones. I'm most of all excited to introduce the two of them as poets, because I think neither would claim that term, but both are. Or neither would claim it as their primary or secondary term, I think. And there's something very beautiful there. So it's my honor to introduce Haider and Aditya. Haider Shahbaz is a writer and translator from Pakistan. His translations include Mirza Beg Hassan's State of Affairs and Fazia Rafiq's Kiru, which just came out 6 weeks ago, 9 weeks ago. Fresh book, fresh translation. His translation of Balraj Munra's compositions is forthcoming from Ugly Duckling Press, a great friend of ours. And one of his Balraj Munra translations I'll drop in the chat. It's like in Fence. It's such a beautiful visual work. I use it as there's sort of a saying in my mind that like each person knows only 5 things and you can only teach those 5 things. Of course, we know infinite things, but anytime I need to show someone like a concrete poem, a visual work, this is the one I know. This is the one I keep ready on my phone. It's very beautiful. Aditya Bahl is the author of 4 chapbooks of poetry, so he would call himself a poet, including Mukt and Name Amen. He regularly writes about poetry and politics, and I would say much more than that. He writes a lot about literature, etc. But for London Review of Books, The Nation, New Left Review, among others. I can't even remember how I knew Haider, how we met, other than it's such a blessing to cross paths with you. It's such a blessing to run into you. Sometimes I have run into Haider in New York, and he is in Harlem, and he's outside the Schomburg Center where he's arrived from Pakistan, and he's there reading like the CLR James archives and the papers that are there. Sometimes he's in Pakistan and he's in the actual archives of the magazine Avaz. Sometimes he is appearing here, there. Sometimes, most of all, he is available as a translator in a state of emergency, in moments of emergency in my life. For instance, when I have translation emergencies, he's most available then. As a friend and an interlocutor and a historian, a public intellectual, and just a good, warm-hearted person. And I was really, really, really moved and touched that he came in with someone he wanted to collaborate with and wanted to work with, who was Aditya Bahl. And Aditya, there's all these like beautiful connections with Aditya. Has actually written about Rajiv, and I'm so glad to have like come into your orbit through this world of like friends and writers. So I'm going to keep talking for just one moment more. I was really excited about their project because to think about Faiz Ahmad Faiz as like a quintessential Urdu poet, a quintessential Urdu poet in the US particularly is it's a standard item. It's a beautiful item, but it's a standard canonical experience we all have to love Fez. It's a standard canonical experience to tell the same story of Edward Said and Fez and one other poet whose name is escaping me, at like a basement cafe in Lebanon and Beirut together. And after a certain point, reciting poems, they no longer needed the language, like exile was the language, right? And they no longer needed translations. And these are all ways that we all come to Fez beautifully through song and through story and through lore. And when you get two scholars and historians together in a room to play, even if the room is immaterial, they turn to a text that I'd never seen before, which is Fez Ahmad Fez's recollections and travel memoir and diaries while in the USSR, which just feels like a very, to enter the room from a different entrance and to see a completely different perspective. Please take it away.
Thank you so much for that generous introduction, Malvika, and for the kind invitation to be in this space, and also for a wonderful tour of Harlem. That was really fun. And yeah, thank you, Sarah and Omar, for creating this space for us. Yeah, as Malvika has kind of mentioned, the project kind of deals with Fez's time in the Soviet Union. Fez is, one of the most iconic 20th century Urdu poets, and more than an Urdu poet, he's really a poet of the third world. He was very interested in anti-colonial struggles across the global south or the third world. He was in Algeria, he was in Cuba, he was in Beirut, he was in the Soviet Union multiple times, was a member of the Afro-Asian Writers Association, which was an association of third world writers, also sponsored by the Soviet Union, that was formed in the 1950s to kind of create literary exchange between different post-colonial and anti-colonial spaces. He was an editor of the magazine Lotus, which was a trilingual magazine published by the Afro-Asian Writers Association. So he's a fascinating figure, and sometimes he's kind of only remembered for his more lyrical poems or his poems that are understood in a very specifically Pakistani context. But really, to read Fez is to open up your thinking to a kind of third worldist project that only remains with us today in certain traces and residues. And so me and Aditya kind of started translating one poem that he wrote in the Soviet Union in 1963, and it kind of expanded into this whole project where we were starting to bring archives into it, different documents into it, prose works into it, and we started kind of mixing and collaging and improvising upon the translation of this poem. But I'll let Aditya, in case Aditya wants to add anything about this project.
No, not really. I think you've done a very expensive kind of like an introduction. Yeah, I think, just wanted to thank Omar, Sarah, Malvika, and everyone else for creating the space. It's been great. Yeah, great to both play and work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Heather, would you like to start reading? Yeah, and I could. Yeah, or how do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, I can start, and then we can. Yeah, I would. It was wonderful to work with Aditya. I'm very grateful that he joined me on this project. The inspiration behind this project was really taken from his work on Mukti Bodh, which is he has this long kind of continuing translation of the Hindi poet Mukti Bodh's work. Which you should all check out. It's really a very interesting work, both formally and thematically. And so we were kind of inspired by that to do something with Fez as well. So I'll just quickly read the Urdu poem that we kind of are riffing off of, and then our different kinds of translational versions of it. So the Urdu poem is called Tum Mere Paas Raho, which was written in the Soviet Union in 1963. मेरे कातिल मेरे दिलदार मेरे पास रहो जिस घड़ी रात चले आसमानों का लहू पी के स्याह रात चले मरहम मश्क लिए निश्तरे अलमास लिए बैन करती हुई हंसती हुई गाती निकले दर्द के कासनी पाजे बजाती निकले जिस घड़ी सीनों में डूबे हुए दिल आस्तीनों में नहा हाथों की राह तकने लगे आस लिए और बच्चों के बिलकने की तरह किलकिले में बहरे नासूदगी मचले तो मनाए ना मने जब कोई बात बनाए ना बने जब न कोई बात चले जिस घड़ी रात चले जिस घड़ी मातमी सुनसान स्याह रात चले पास रहो मेरे कातिल मेरे दिलदार मेरे पास रहो. Stay near me. My murderer, my sweetheart, stay near me. In Moscow, I agreed. When they requested, the hour night walks, the hour night drinks the blood of each sky and walks the remaining traces. Medicine and musk, scalpel and jewel, my views of the Soviet Union. 17 years ago, in 1958, the hour an empty and black night walks, the hour our hearts drown with hope. I sent a sketch to Progress Publishing House. How should I write in this book an ocean of discontent stay near? When nothing walks, when night walks, after going there so many years, when I first saw the Soviet Union, my murderer, my sweetheart, stay near me. And then another version. When the hour meets the hour of Moscow, when is the time to write poetry? When to mourn, to laugh, to sing? When feet flowers further go, stay near? When CIA prints, when I open the window, each word is silent of its origin. When the anniversary of the October Revolution, when I cannot wait to write poetry, when and revolution there are guests to entertain, when and revolution see permanent, see international, when 1963, 1958, 1975, when my anklets, my syllables, my hours, when the red spreads, spreads.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Do you want to read another one, or should I read, Heather? Or
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So this is like not just like riffing on both the poems, but also kind of like his introduction to the project, Fez's introduction to his Moscow travelogues, poems, and stuff like that. So a lot of this stuff kind of like draws on those themes and threads and what have you. Lone bangle, quiet bone, oh papiha, why do you sing the malhar? Pee 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 pee. You stay with me. Clocks still, the speech, the nights tick. Tell me, what time is it in Persia when nights start to tick? What time is it in Moscow? Tulip, sky, wine, nightingale, lake, grape, lotus. Please don't go. I know some more words. You. What time is it in Lahore? In Moscow, they say they know the secret words for turning musk into ointment, diamond into knife, sky into clock, ink into gargle, forehead into mouth, kerosene into cattle. 1951. Fill in this space with whatever happened to you under torture. 1970. No one, comrade, I am sorry to report, no one says the word progress anymore. Only soft fists of marigolds waver when fog lifts low over Suez. May I desire duration? May I excel color, acre, or o'clock? Counts that coin a colony? In Moscow, they say, consider a joke. 3 ships enter a sea carrying heavily subsidized wheat rumored to be rougher than the roughest roughage chicken can tolerate. What is dollar anyway? Some greatly diminished referent they will call port. One day I arrived in London to write a lyric to lull the velocity of rest, the rest of the world systems. What time is it in Jalandhar? The progressivists of Punjab stand these days like 5,000 elephants put on display in an exhibition. Ali Sardar Jafri is now writing qasidas in the praise of Nehru. Krishan Chandra thinks that getting a photograph clicked with Indira Gandhi on his 65th birthday is the insurgent spark for revolution. Sajjad Zahir has fled Pakistan and now seeks refuge in Soviet travelogues. Sahir is busy removing with erasers the name of Mao from his poems. Majnu is heralding red dawns by composing songs for films like C-80 Cat. In Mir Taqi Mir's first Diwan, circa 1752, 35 out of 561 ghazals contain at least one couplet on loving boys. In Mir Taqi Mir's second Diwan, circa 1775, 42 out of 391 ghazals contain at least one couplet on loving boys. In Mir Taqi Mir's third Diwan, circa 1785, 24 out of 254 ghazals contain at least one couplet on loving boys. In Mir Taqi Mir's fourth Diwan, circa 1794, 19 out of 220 ghazals contain at least one couplet on loving boys. In Mir Taqi Mir's fifth Diwan, circa 1798, 30 out of 259 ghazals contain at least one couplet on loving boys. In Mir Taqi Mir's sixth Diwan, circa 1808, 27 out of 133 ghazals contain at least one couplet on loving boys. Yeah, I'll stop there. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you both so much. See, poets, shire of shires. Yeah, wild. Thank you both so much, and thank you to everyone who has been in this 2025. Wait 1 second, I forgot a very important piece. There you go. Thank you so much to everyone who participated in this 2025 incarnation of the Tamaas Poetry Translation Seminar. Thank you to Asna, Lali, Samandar, Sanam, myself, Rajiv, Sham-e-Ali, to Zeeshan, Haider, and Aditya. Thank you also to the folks from the 2024 Translation Seminar who have been here full of love in the chat. So nice to have like Sarah Ghazalali and Javeria and, you know, just like the love of the people. So nice to have Grace McNair, my true neighbor who is Hindi fluent, down the street in the chat. Thank you everyone for being here. What a lovely time. And yeah, what else can I say except all of the things I have planned to say? When we began the translation seminar this year on the first day, Omar told a beautiful story that I had not heard before, which I feel like I invest deeply in the kind of lore of the work that Tamaas does. So I was surprised to hear a story that I'd not heard. And the story was about the secret subterranean precedent for this translation seminar, this translation project, taking over for a former translation project that was in like a Cistercian abbey outside of Paris, where they would invite, they were known for the music programs, literature programs, but once a year they would invite a poet and gather around them an orbit of 6 or 7 poets, all of who wrote in French, one who wrote in any language, and they would do the translation day by day of that poet's texts, right? And from this emerged this process of a collective translation, and that the poet could voice their poems into the space so that everyone can hear the sound, the rhythm, the cadence, the musicality, and then all of the poets would ask questions as they translated. And so they would make a word by word, mot a mot translation. And Omar described this like very beautiful, strange thing that happened by the end of the week, this magical thing that happened, which is a new poetic persona would emerge, the persona of the collective body, the collective translator, that generated new texts, not from a position of knowledge, but from a position of different potentials, experimental potentials, and this idea that translation doesn't necessarily have to do with expertise, but a capacity to listen from the ear, which has to do a lot more with community, and it's kind of like reciprocity, horizontal process, friendship, kinship, partnerships. And you see, I've taken the words from his mouth and heard them and given them again. Yeah, I'm feeling that so much in the collective body of the poetry that has been made through this seminar last year, this year, and the ephemerality and the beauty of it. I hope it has been as much of a pleasure for you as it has been for me. And yeah, I hope we continue to cross-pollinate and co-conspire. Yeah, at the edges of language. Thank you all so much. And I think with that, I'll close it out. If you want to unmute and say goodbye, you can. I will change the security settings so that you can. But this has been a beautiful way to spend a Sunday for me with you all. Truly a dream. Yeah.
Really beautiful. It brings tears to my eyes. And the things that can come out in these settings, it exceeds what happened in person.